Welcome. I am here with Binya and Chava from Shel Maala, which is a digital-first Zara-style queer Talmud community and an internet-based grassroots Beit Midrash or house of study. Thank you both for being here.
Of course,
Yeah.
our pleasure.
So, Shel Maala was born during the pandemic when so much Jewish life moved online by necessity. Now that we're several years past that initial crisis, how has your vision evolved and what have you learned about what digital community can and can't do?
So I think in a lot of ways, our foundational vision is still strong. We started because at the start of the pandemic, many disabled people were afraid that digital offerings would evaporate eventually. And we started with a strong value of wanting to make sure people could feel secure that those offerings would not disappear. And that still remains very true. But I also feel like as we've gone on over the years and as we've started to come down from the cloud and do some real life events, we've learned that there is just certain parts of the heart that get nourished by real life learning that are hard to hit as well with digital learning. And I think that they feed into each other really beautifully. We travel out into the world and hang out with our learners in real life, and that connects them more to the online learning. And that sort of mutually reinforcing web of community actually has become, I think, a really important part of how the Shel Maala learning ecosystem works. Digital is really good at consistent, everyday, as needed contact, and then real life is sort of those like big infusions of togetherness and learning and joy. And those two things sort of go in a rhythm with each other.
Yeah, and I think one of the beautiful things that, wasn't part of the initial goal, but is such an amazing flowering of having a digital yeshiva is just the ability for Jews to be learning together across literally the entire world all the time. And where it's like morning in one place and evening in another across 10 hours and thousands of miles, like people are just like discussing the parsha of the week or some, political moment or some Jewish concept that they want to learn about. And we're trading that information. And it kind of feels like it's a realization of the dreams of a lot of our ancestors who were communicating across long distance to make the Talmud and make the Torah in the ways that we know it. So that's a big blessing.
Yeah, that's really beautiful that being able to connect with community just across the world, really. So that's really amazing. So you describe yourselves as radically irreverent and unapologetically gay. Can you talk about how irreverence and joy show up in your teaching, and how is that different from more traditional approaches?
Yeah, um, these are great questions. So I think that a measure of irreverence is key to maintaining relevance. And I almost slipped up those two words and just am live saying that. But I think what I mean by that is the Judaism as we live it and know it is a really bold and brash project. It is uh, taking a religion that was defined as a sacrificial temple cult by its core text, and then saying that that can actually teach us how to live and inform every moment of our existence, no matter where we are, which isn't obvious if, like, you say your God told you to sacrifice goats in one city, and now you're saying that that same God has something to tell you literally no matter where you are. That requires an amount of kind of reverent irreverence and radicality to both remain connected to where you come from so that you're not kind of entirely undifferentiated with everybody around you and losing all of your roots, but also profoundly able to experiment and to create a new Judaism where in the ways that it's needed. And that's what our ancestors did, and that's what we have to do in our generation. And that's actually like the foundation of what diaspora is. Um, and then and that, I think that is something that more like certain other currents of religious Judaism suffer from is like a kind of stasis that where you learn such a radical text and project like Judaism and the Talmud, but you're saying you have the full truth now and there's no more experimentation that needs to happen. It's not true. Jews are constantly changing, the Orthodox included, but like it's even more powerful once you realize what you're doing rather than do it by happenstance. And then the joy is just what fuels all of that. Like we're not here writing a paper for a college, course that we don't want to take, but is a requirement, and we're just having to study in order for that. We're doing it because, um, well, that's I guess the ideal of our tradition is that mitzvahs, which in some way can be described as weighty obligations, actually become sources of joy and fulfillment in our lives. And so I think it's on all of us who are creating Jewish spaces to provide the frameworks and the understandings and model that sense that we're lucky to be able to do what we're doing, and it's not an imposition. It's not something to cast off, but actually, the more we do it, the bigger it will bless our lives with the richness that it can provide.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Um, so one of your stated goals is making queer Talmud accessible to anyone with internet access. 24/6 is what your website says. So who has been able to find you that might not have had access to traditional learning, Jewish learning spaces?
Yeah, I think there's sort of two ways to answer this question. I think way one is like the more classic demographic answer, right? Like there are a lot of international students who have been able to find us in countries where there's little to no Jewish community presence. There's students in less Jewish areas in the US who have been able to find us, who are able to have community and connection wherever they are. And then, of course, there's people who have been excluded politically. We don't have a political litmus test to be a part of learning at our yeshiva. And that creates a lot of space both for those whose politics are deemed unacceptable, for instance, anti-Zionists and almost all mainstream Jewish community spaces, and also for those whose politics might be welcome, but they can't be their full selves, or they can't question in those mainstream community spaces. There's also folks who are homebound because of disability that have found a lot of community on our server. And that's sort of one cloud of people who have been able to access Jewish learning. But I think there's another aspect to this, which is like the pedagogical access. Like we don't just mean that wherever you are in the world, you can log on, but we also mean whoever you are, you can log on and meaningfully be yourself and experience rigorous learning, regardless of your Hebrew level, your experience with Jewish culture, your upbringing, whatever that may be. Our pedagogy, which is based off of the pedagogy of the Sfara Yeshiva, where we were both trained to teach and has been sort of adapted within Shel Maala, is focused on creating those entrances for each and every student, regardless of their circumstances, and not just entrances to swim in the kiddie pool, entrances to jump into the deep end of the Talmud and translate it in its original. And we do that 24/6. We do that all the time. And we get to see people go from someone who never thought they would ever get to access rigorous Jewish learning to people who teach classes at our yeshiva now. And that's sort of what the full breadth of that access looks like for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you kind of alluded to my next question in the beginning part of your response, but I want to hear a little bit about. So you all are clear that Shel Maala is normatively anti-Zionist, but it also remains open to all students. So what does it mean to create an explicitly anti-Zionist Jewish learning home?
Um, Anti-Zionism is not our core identity, but it is necessary for us um, in a world where Zionism not only exists, but is ascendant and horrendous in its effect on the world. Um, we are a queer yeshiva here to teach Torah and Talmud, to people who desire it, and that is us stewarding and entering into a tradition that is thousands of years older than the first kind of Zionist twinkle in the Jewish people's eye. Um, uh, Now, if the Torah was given on a mountain because it was meant to be at the place where heaven and earth meet. And so if you're entirely in heaven and entirely separate from the world, you're actually not um, receiving revelation in its truest sense, that there's meant to be an interaction between the world as it is and the world as it could be. So in a world where um, the a state that calls itself Jewish, a Jewish state where half of the Jewish people live in, which both stylizes itself, is understood by others and is understood by many of us as representative of our people, um, is committing like an accelerated genocide campaign over the last 2 years, but taking genocidal action for the last 100. You can't teach Judaism in its fullest sense, which is meant to be a moral project, and specifically, like in a core way, like it's meant to be a moral project for all people and for the world. But for us, it's meant to be a self-critical project of perfecting our own souls and our own communities, from the history of our prophets who were doing that and who would be in JVP today, to us today, and through the Talmud. Like that's the goal of this project. And so to ignore the largest Jewish sin, and the largest failing of our Torah, to mitigate our bad midot, our, like, our bad kind of moral attributes, and to increase our good ones, like to ignore that would be to kind of separate ourselves from the world, and would weaken and diminish our Torah. And it also, obviously, strengthens a state that is killing so many Palestinians, and is would be make our learning inaccessible for people who can't choose, can't make themselves ignore the children that they see on their phone dying every day. So that's why we are, and we hope to teach in a world where Zionism has moved beyond its core hold of our people, and to continue to teach Torah in a world with a free Palestine, please God. And the reason why we are normatively anti-Zionist and not like and don't have a political check at the door is because even though we hold that vision, this is me talking to you. Back in 2014, I was sharing Stand With Us posts, and Zionist content, which is exactly how I was raised and was meant to be in my life, growing up in a Zionist Jewish household. And it's only because there were people, including Jews, who had studied more or had different opinions than I did, but who were open to talking with me, that I now understand the world in what I consider a clearer way. And so I don't believe in closing those doors. I know that I have been late to things and am currently late to movements, and every single person is. And I don't think it does service to those individuals, to their neshamas, to my neshama, to the Jewish people or the world as a whole, to the moment we cross the political threshold, to close the door to everybody who hasn't crossed it yet. So that's why we do what we do.
Yeah, that's really great, and I completely agree. Okay, so if someone is looking to get involved with Shel Maala, where can they find you?
Here's where they can find us. On our Instagram and our website are the two easiest ways to keep up to date with to see what's on offer all the time, which is, weekly learnings with us, including Torah for Palestine every Tuesday at 8 Eastern, with visiting speakers all the time, and our classes, that our multi-week classes that happen throughout the year, and our tours that happen throughout the year. So website shelmaala.com, Instagram at Shel Maala Yeshiva. coming onto our Discord, which you can find your way through from both those places, and getting on our mailing list, which you can also find your way to. So both of those places are great ways to like get more, not just seek out information, but you can be part of the community, or we'll let you know actively. And if you really want to ever invest in a community like this, it just is $1 a month to become a member, which just basically means you're not just neutral at the future of queer anti-Zionist Talmud in the world. You want to be part of making it happen, and we also give you some extra Torah and swag and other things as a gift for investing in the community like that. But yeah, those are the main ways. Did I miss anything, Chapala?
No, you did great.
Okay, love you so much. But yeah,
Love you too.
come learn any Hebrew level, any politics, whatever. We're here to learn and teach some Torah with you.
Amazing. Thank you both so much.